Hey guys, Flores here, coming at you with a new series I'm going to be doing, whereas I'm analysing some replays that I've done from some tournaments, either from VGC or Doubles OU, and I'm just going to be giving my thoughts on my turn-by-turn decisions, so you get a bit of insight into what I'm thinking each turn and how I go around, how I play, and stuff like that. So for this game here, I'm really happy with the matchup. I've brought a Mega Gengar team with a Choice Band Landorus Explosion, so I know that right now, if I can pivot the Landorus into like a spot where it can't be intimidated, it should be able to get a double knockout with an Explosion, which is really good for me because that's just a lot of offense I can put out the one turn, and a lot of the rest of the team is just high offensive hitters, either with super effective coverage or just strong hitting attacks. So it's a very offensive team, and it's built around trying to pivot around and getting knockouts at each sort of pivot you've done. So I'll start the game for us. So we can see here that turn one, we've got a pretty much an ideal lead for me. So you can see we've got my Gengar and Hydreigon facing off against his Landorus, Fariat, and Kangaskhan. Now, from here, this is a really good position for Mega Gengar if I can just Mega Evolve and protect it, and I swap Hydreigon on for the Landorus. Get the double Intimidate onto both of his Pokemon, and the best he could do at this point is either do a double switch, but I don't really see the Landorus switching at this point. It's probably not an ideal position for him to do, but I could definitely see the Kangaskhan switching out. Unless it's Scrappy Kangaskhan, it doesn't really want to face off against the Gengar. But I guess I'll see what he goes for. So you can see I swapped my Hydreigon for the Landorus as I said I would. And notice he doesn't actually do any switches because we Mega Evolve. So there's the Landorus, and he's got two Intimidating Mons at this point. We see he goes for a fake out onto my Landorus, faking out the Hydreigon, and he U-turns the Gengar, which is fair enough. It's pretty safe for him. You're faking out the Hydreigon, so he can't make a move at that point. So there's not much point you turn into the Hydreigon, because if the Hydreigon protects at this point, then you've just done a double, and you've just let Mega Gengar get a free move off if I decided to go for it. So he U-turns the Gengar. It's relatively safe. But it puts him into a horrible position right here, because right now my Landorus is in a fantastic position just to go for a Choice Band Explosion. The only thing that can switch in right now is the Landorus switching out into a Jirachi. That'll be the only thing that'll take a Choice Band Animate Explosion. And if he does that, Gengar can just knock it out in the next turn, so I'm not too phased by that. So we'll see how he goes with this. So we confirm right now that the Landorus is Choice Scarf because it's faster than my Gengar. So I go for the Will-O-Wisp onto the Thundurus, and he goes for a Frustration to the Landorus. And then I proceed to get a double knockout with the Choice Band, boom. And so we'll see what comes in for the switch-ins. Right. So with that turn there, I went for a Will-O-Wisp onto the Thundurus for two reasons. One, I rationalised if the Jirachi switches in for the Landorus and he recognises I might have a Choice Band Explosion because I've used this for a couple rounds now this team, so he might have scouted it. The Will-O-Wisp covers the Jirachi, so I don't take any Sucker Punch damage from the Kangaskhan if it goes for it. And I also get a chip down the Jirachi a bit more without taking any sort of damage. I could have Will-O-Wisp the Kangaskhan if I wanted Landorus to avoid taking even more damage, but I rationalised the Jirachi was probably more important because unless the Kangaskhan gets a critical hit, I'm in a really good position there. So I felt my odds were pretty strong to go with that. So we'll go with the next turn here. Oh, sorry. So he goes for another U-turn and he doubles into the Gengar with a Steam Eruption. Now, and the Gengar's switching out. Sorry. With how that turn went, what I was going for is either the Hydreigon gets knocked out by Landorus superpower, and if he does that, his Landorus is now at -1, so it's not threatening me as much. But if he goes for something else, unless it's Rock Slide, which I guess he could flinch Hydreigon, preventing me from getting that Tailwind off. If the Landorus goes for a U-turn, it's not knocking out the Hydreigon, not unless it's a critical hit, and even then I think it's a roll. So from that sort of play, I've set myself up really well because I've got the Tailwind up and Oh yeah, I'm looking at the Gengar switching out part, and the Gengar's free. So from here, it's a perfectly free Life Orb Draco Meteor into the Landorus, and Volcanion comes in because Landorus is the threat to me, and they'll one shot a Scarf Landorus, no problems. And so he goes to the Steam Eruption again, and my Volcanion switching just capitalizes off that, taking no damage from that turn, rather other than Life Orb Recoil. But I've got a really important knockout because at this point, I don't really think he has much of a win condition. Unless he has like a Thunderwave Jirachi, and or even Scarf Jirachi, I guess, could potentially be dangerous. But I've got a Tailwind up. So we'll see how I go about with this turn. So I swap the Hydreigon out because at this point Hydreigon's really good against the Jirachi and the Volcanion, and the Sylveon is what's keeping him in the game. So he goes for a Carmine, so he's a Carmine leftover Sylveon, and I presume he'd have Substitute as well, but Substitute probably won't help too much in this case. So with this, I've got Tailwind still up. What I want to do is knock out that Sylveon, because Sylveon is the number one threat. That's how I win if I KO it. So from that 9, he goes for a Protect, which is really intelligent on his behalf, because I've doubled into it, I guess, but the Hyper Voice still does decent damage to his Volcanion. And he goes for a Sludge Bomb, which doesn't knock out my Sylveon. So now from here, what I rationalised was, if he goes for a Sludge Bomb to the Sylveon, because his is presumably faster, I'm running a very slow Volcanion, so he can't knock out my Volcanion. He's showed Sludge Bomb, so unless he actually has no missing a stab or missing Protect, he's not got Earth Power, so he can't actually touch my Volcanion very well. So the Helping Hand covers me because it's guaranteed to boost my damage unless I miss a move, but it's setting myself up for better odds. But he actually goes for the Sludge Bomb to the Volcanion, which is fair enough. And he goes for a Hyper Voice as well, which does knock out the Sylveon as well. But as you can see, my Steam Eruption only did 44%, and he did get the Poison, which was kind of frustrating, but it wasn't too bad. Just because Volcanion was in a really good spot right now, but the Poison sort of limits its turn. Because it had leftovers, it could just stay in and take the hits. But with Poison, it's now on a timer, so it's not as useful and effective now. But I bring in Mecha Gengar now just because I should be able to just Sludge Bomb the Sylveon, or actually, it depends. Yeah, so we'll see how this turn goes out. And yeah, okay, so Sludge Bomb's Volcanion, and what do I bring in? I bring in Hydreigon. So why I went for the Protect with Gengar that turn was I recognised he's probably going to Steam Eruption the Mega Gengar, which he didn't when he probably should have, because Mega Gengar was how I sort of KO'd Sylveon. And the Steam Eruption probably would KO Gengar. So I went, if I protect Gengar and his Sylveon protects, then I'm in a really good position there, because it means I can set myself up for a KO in the next turn, unless he gets a double protect. And he did go for the protect there. If he doesn't protect, well, I don't lose too much from it. I might lose my Volcanion, but I've got other things that can come in, like a Jirachi or a Hydreigon, which is what comes in here. And so from here, I just go for a Sludge Bomb KO and a Draco Meteor knockout. And from there, the game's pretty much over. Having a Gengar and a Hydreigon still, his Jirachi didn't have any option of winning there. And so that was game 1. I took that pretty convincingly, I'd say. Choice Band Landorus was really good in the lead. He gave me those quick KOs on his Mega and his Thunderous. So he didn't have any sort of RNG elements he could influence, maybe with a Thunder Wave. Or Swagger's actually banned, so he couldn't use Swagger. But Thunder Wave probably would have been a good out for him at that point. But we'll go into the second game of them. Now, for this, I brought a Mega Gardevoir Trick Room team, but I'm using Eruption Heatran and a Life Orb Tyranitar. I'd seen in scouting that he used Charizard a decent amount. I believe he used Rain as well. So I thought Tyranitar Guard would improve my matchup if he brought Sun, and it would improve my Rain up somewhat. Tyranitar doesn't appreciate switching into water moves, but it's decent in shutting down the weather if led correctly or given opportunities to, I guess. and he brought a Deontay Curum team, just a pretty standard balanced offense, I would say. Looks like a relatively standard Deontay team. So we'll go into the game. So he's led Deontay Talonflame, and I've led Gardevoir Rotom. Right. Okay, and so Gardevoir traces Clear Body, so the Clear Body is probably more useful, I guess. There's not really any boosts at this point that he could take away, I guess. But from here, the Rotom Wash is in a fantastic position. Both of them get knocked out by Thunderbolt and a Hydro Pump, respectively. The Gardevoir's in an okay position. It probably would get KO'd by a double target, so I don't really want to keep it in here. At least not without an Intimidate coming in or something like that. So he swaps the Talonflame in for the Aegislash, which makes sense. And so I protect the Gardevoir and the Hydro Pump the Aegislash, and he Diamond Storms. Right. So with my thinking there, I rationalise he might swap in Landorus for a Thunderbolt from the Talonflame. If he brings in a Curum, the Hydro Pump's just my much better option there. I considered the Deontay not protecting, but I thought it's pretty risky if he did. So he's playing extremely risky if he does that turn one, which he did. Which it's fair enough. It's a good play, because I didn't target it. So he really did well there. And I didn't Mega Evolve the Gardevoir just because I don't know the speeds of his team, and so I would like to at least ideally outspeed the Rotom, maybe the Landorus in Trick Room. It depends how slow they are. I didn't have any reason to Mega Evolve there really if I'm just protecting. And so he brought the Aegislash in. It took a decent amount from the Hydro Pump. But it's probably a wide guard set because we didn't see leftovers. So I'm saying that it's probably going to try and wide guard my Hyper Voices. But we'll see how this turn plays out. Okay. So he swaps Diancie for Curum, and so I've swapped my Gardevoir. So I'm going to protect Rotom, and he attacks with his Aegislash. Now that's really interesting because he clearly didn't expect Gardevoir to Hyper Voice there, or was banking off it, because the Curum would have been one-shotted easily. Actually, no, it might not have been. Curum Black's very bulky. It's got very good stats. Aegislash wouldn't have been KO'd, but it probably would have taken it to 50% or so. And so, yeah, he targeted the Rotom, but I protected, so it was a pretty safe turn. Not much happened. Yeah, and so I bring in Tyranitar. Oh, yes, because I swapped Gardevoir for Landorus, and Landorus doesn't want to be in with the Curum. Because, yeah, at this point I didn't know what item the Curum was, so I was fearing a Choice Scarf. So I bring in Tyranitar because right now Tyranitar looks really good facing off against a Blade, Aegislash, and a Cura Black. Both weak to Rock and Dark moves, which is Tyranitar's both stabs. And I bring in the Moongus for the Rotom. So I do a double switch actually here. Trying to pivot myself around because I wasn't in a particularly good spot against them. So he goes for an Earth Power to Moongus, and he's going to Earth Power the Rotom. Didn't expect the Landorus to stay in, which is fair enough. Oops, skipped ahead in the turn. We'll see if the Hydro Pump connects, I guess. So at this position, I'm just like, the Moongus is pretty safe to Spore something, and the Tyranitar can get an attack off. The worst case scenario, I guess, is he doubles into Tyranitar, but I don't get the Spore off. So I didn't mind that position too much. And so the Rotom goes for a Hydro Pump and the Tyranitar, and it does 57%, which is reasonable damage. And that's a Life Orb Rock Slide, and that Rotom took 37%. That is really, really bulky physically. So I realised that's probably a bold Rotom because it should not be doing that much to a regular 252 HP Rotom. And so from here, he swapped in the Safety Goggles Aegislash into a Moongus. Then he predicted the Spore into the Curum. I mean, the Rock Slide would have broken a sub if the Curum went for it. Um, and so I've in thinking that that position, like that move, just set me into a good spot. But right here, I'm not particularly good. The special defense on the Mungus drop hurts because it means that Aegislash could knock it out with a Shadow Bell or Flash Cannon, and the Rotom can knock out Tyranitar with a Hydro Pump. So it's not a good position for me right now. But he swaps the Rotom out into Landorus, which makes sense. You get Intimidate on the Tyranitar. And so I swap the Mungus in for the Rotom, try and get some Regenerator, because I recognise, yeah, Rotom's probably a little bit too low HP to be extremely useful at this point. And so I'm going for another switch, going to the Landorus, and what does he go for a U-turn? So what does Rotom go for here? Go for a Thunderbolt into the Kyurem. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Right. Okay, and so we see that's leftovers Kyurem there. So it's not a Choice Scarf Kyurem, which is good to know. But right now I'm seeing I'm not getting very good damage trades. Right now my Rotom's nearly knocked out, my Tyranitar's nearly knocked out, sorry, and it's not in a good position for me. So I'm recognizing I need to get Trick Room set up because that's how, if I can get Trick Room set up without the Aegislash being on the field, that's how I can really set myself up to win. So knowing that information, I've swapped the Landorus into Tyranitar, and he brings in a Landorus in for the Rotom, and I swap Rotom into a Mungus. Now, that's exactly what I wanted to happen with that turn. I wanted Tyranitar to be knocked out by the Rotom, or whatever attack he went for, I guess, because I want that free switch into Gardevoir, because right now, this is the perfect what I was setting myself up for. Gardevoir and the Mungus. He can't touch Gardevoir because I've got Rage Powder. If he Earthquakes, he can't bring in Aegislash because he's going to Earthquake his own Pokemon, which is great. So I can get practically a free Trick Room here. So we'll see how this turn goes out. So Rage Powder, he U-turns, which is fair enough, and he's staying in with the Rotom. Yeah, he U-turns into Aegislash and Hydro Pumps. I'm presuming he's doubled into the Gardevoir. It only makes sense there. Punishes if I don't go for the... what is it? Anyway. So we can see here, from that turn, I swapped Gardevoir into Heat Ram because I was like, I don't want, like, if this Wide Guard Aegislash, Gardevoir's not in a good position. Gardevoir is how I beat the Kyurem Black. And even the Deontay to some degree, it's like, Gardevoir is really important. Heat Ram, not as important. Heat Ram's just for sort of just taking out the Aegislash. That's primarily its job. And Aegislash can't do more than the free KO to it, which is what it goes for. It goes for a Shadow Ball. And the Rotom, because I spoiled it, takes its first turn to sleep. So from here, the Aegislash goes for a King's Shield, which makes sense. And so what I do is I Sludge Bomb and I Heat Wave. Now, I go for that because I want to try and eliminate the Rotom, and I was praying I'd get a more than a one-turn sleep on the Rotom. I would be in a bad position. The Heat Ring gets knocked out. But at this point, I can't really afford to go for something else. I mean, I don't. The Heat Wave might have been range on the Rotom. It depends if it's really physically bulky. It depends how much HP I guess it has. And I Heat Wave because if he Wide Guards with the Aegislash, I'm still getting a Sludge Bomb off. And because I've heat waved, I'm scouting if he did go for the Wide Guard, nearly has it, and he went for the King Shield. So I'm thinking here, my Heat Rain's probably slower because it's min speed and he has no Trick Room element in his team. So I'm thinking what I'll probably go for here is an Earth Pound to the Aegislash because it should pick up a knockout at this range. And the Sludge Bomb, as we saw, does 28% to the Rotom there. So it will get another knockout there. So here we go. Rotom goes for a Protector and he goes to the Wide Guard. So I'll go for the Sludge Bomb KO and I'll go for the Earth Pound to the Aegislash. So I get a double knockout. Now that's what I was really trying to position myself into. So here I swap the Amoonguss into the Rotom because the Amoonguss is really important at this point. It's how I protect Gardevoir from the single target damage. And I'll go for Eruption because I don't want to miss. And it punishes anything else he does. If he keeps him with Talonflame, I'm getting Eruption off him Talonflame, and it's like Brave Bird in the Rotom. The Rotom stays on the field. It's not in a brilliant position. At this point, it's probably more of a sacrificial thing rather than actually getting an attack off, but we'll see how the turn plays out. Yeah, so I protect the Heatran and go for the Hail Mary Hydro Pump with the Rotom from memory. Just if he misses a Diamond Storm or something, then I get a knockout onto the Deontay. Otherwise, the Rotom just drops. So from here, the Gardevoir is looking pretty good because I could swap the Heatran Saint to a Landorus and just go for a Hyper Voice or a Trick Room. And Hyper Voice would knock out the Kyurem and do a lot of damage to the Deontay. A Trick Room would set me up for success with all my sort of slower Pokemon on the team. And so I do swap, but I swap into a Moongus. Just because I was scared if he would predict the Heatran switch and goes for an Ice Beam. And here I go for the Trick Room because he can't knock out Gardevoir on its own. So yeah, he does Ice Beam and he knocks out the Amoonguss, but I get practically a free Trick Room. And it's good to note that it's actually a free KO Diamond Storm on the Gardevoir, which is really good. Or it could be a roll, but if it came to that, I'd have to play to those odds, I guess. So here this turn, he goes for a double protect. Now, in terms of him winning, it was the incorrect play. He had to sacrifice the Kyurem because you want the Talonflame to come in. And then Talonflame knocks out the Gardevoir, and like the Gardevoir is sort of how I'm keeping in the game. If I don't have the Gardevoir, I lose because I can't knock out this Kyurem effectively. Sorry. So how I played that turn, I was actually scared of the Kyurem switching the Talonflame, but after watching the games back, I recognised that letting the Kyurem die at this point was more important. Get the safe free switch in the Talonflame. Because I was considering going for like a Earth Power and a Deontay and a Psychic into the Kyurem, or like a Heat Wave and a Psychic into the Kyurem. But I thought if he doesn't swap into the Talonflame, say he attacks the Kyurem, I just outright lose. So it was sort of a 50-50, but in the end I recognised that Eruption and Hyper Voice still do a lot of damage to the Talonflame, so even if he does go for the read and switches, I'm still getting lots of damage off, and I thought that was probably the better play in the end. So he's just double protected, so he's not in a good position, he has to switch, and so you can see Eruption does 27 and Hyper Voice does 39, so that Talonflame is under 50%. So yeah, it's not looking in a good position right now. So I've got Gardevoir Heatran against his Landorus Talonflame. Now, right now he could just go for, say, a Brave Bird into the Gardevoir and an Earthquake into the Heatran. And at that point, that's pretty scary to try and deal with. And I only have 2 turns of Trick Room left, so I have to keep that in mind because I'm going to start running out. And that Deontay at the end of Trick Room is going to get very scary. So I swap the Heatran into the Landorus, and his Talonflame switches to Deontay, and I protect Gardevoir. It's fair enough, and he goes for a U-turn. So with that there, it's like Gardevoir gets a free Hyper Voice right now. That's practically free, and he can't stop it. If he brings in the Talonflame, it's going to get knocked out by a Hyper Voice. I'm pretty sure at this range. Yeah, it did 39 before. So it's like he has to protect Deontay if it wants it to stay around. And the Landorus, unless it has Protect, which I don't think I've seen if it did or didn't, he's going to lose something this turn. So I go for a Hyper Voice, and I also go for the knockoff, because I'm like, the Landorus is more scary, and we actually see his Choice Scarf there. So at this position, I'm like, I've got a Landorus and a Gardevoir facing against a Talonflame and a Deontay. Now, neither Intimidate, and Landorus can intimidate both if I can switch it in. So I'm like, I'm going to sacrifice the Heatran, or bring it in the idea that it's going to be sacrificed. If it doesn't, it depends on the situation. It could be helpful, it could be unhelpful. And I'm going to protect the Gardevoir because I just want the Landorus to come in. So he goes for a Brave Bird into the Talonflame and actually critical hits, which it oh, sorry. It does and doesn't help him because it means he gets more damage on the heat rain. So if he went, I don't know, on a diamond storm, it might not have KO'd the heat rain if it was like a very specially attack invested Deontay rather than a physically attack invested, because they always Mega Deontay's always pretty much run like a naive or a hasty and like a mixed, just because its best stabs are on either side. Special and physical attack thing variant, and we'll see what the So he goes for a diamond storm and he knocks out Heatran. It's just like, okay then, that's what I was hoping for. So I get the intimidated Landorus, and basically in this position I'm like, it comes down to what he does. And I believe I earthquaked with the Landorus here. I'm pretty sure because if the Talonflame Brave Bird's the Gardevoir, and in that might not knock out the Gardevoir at -1. It might also, but it means the Talonflame's dying, and so the Deontay can't knock out Landorus. The Landorus Earthquakes, knocks out Deontay, I win. If the Talonflame Brave Bird's a Landorus, and then he goes for a Diamond Storm or a Moonblast into Landorus as well, he's knocking out the Landorus, but it means Gardevoir's getting a free Hyper Voice, and because it's single target, because the Talonflame would knock itself out, I might get a knockout. It depends on the Deontay set, really. So he goes with a Brave Bird into the Landorus, and he goes for the Moonblast as well, so he doubles into it. I get the Hyper Voice, and I get the critical hit. But at that point, it didn't matter, because it was a 25% chance to KO naive, I think, or non-naive in single target. I'm not 100% sure on that. But we saw from damage before of the Diamond Storm, if we scroll up, we might be able to find it. Because I'm trying to see the Diamond Storm damage. Anyway, unless he crit with Diamond Storm, as Kamikaze is pointing out there on the screen, it won't knock out the Gardevoir, just because it's -1, and we saw the damage, I believe, with spread or something similar to that. So I practically sealed up the game from that point, and I won the game set 2-0, and so I moved on to the next round. So you can see that was a bit of my thought process with how the games went. If there's anything you kind of want me to explain a bit more on for future videos, post it down in the comments and let me know, and I'll see if I can fix on them for next time. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Feel free to click the subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys later.